Welcome to Sharpen the Public, an NFL and sports gambling podcast made by bettors for bettors. This is and will be the only place that you can learn to leverage public betting trends to win more of your bets in the NFL. Have you ever wondered what it actually means when people say, hey, the public is on this side or the money is on this side? There's no context, but that's what we're here for, to provide context for those numbers. My name is DJ Bianco, and I'm your host of Sharpen the Public. Years ago, I started tracking the public betting numbers for every game in the NFL. I wanted to know, hey, if the public is 55% and the money is 65%, what does that mean? What are the trends for those numbers? If you've ever wondered that, then you've come to the right place. Every week, we're here to recap and preview the upcoming and previous weeks in the NFL. Let's dive into those trends. Welcome to Sharpen the Public. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Sharpen the Public. As always, I am your host, Deej, back in our recap episode, so I'm without anyone, but as always, I'm excited to be back, talk about the NFL with you guys. It's been yet another exciting week in the NFL, but I'm sitting here Monday night watching the Giants get absolutely demolished by the Seahawks when I decided to put money on a team that I hate. The Giants look absolutely dog shit, and I mean, they've got a lot of issues at offensive line. I thought they would be able to handle 11 days of rest and figure out something to do against a Seahawks offense that was also a bit banged up, but I digress. That was absolutely the wrong side to be on, but in better news, we did have a fairly good week. Sadly, went down a half a unit thanks to a 2-unit loss on the Eagles and Commanders under, but we'll get into all of the games and recaps of everything in a little bit. As is the new tradition here on Sharpen the Public, I am going to sit here and recap NFL Week 4, talk about the games, talk about the trends, and update everyone on the public betting trends as we start to prepare for Week 5. I mean, we're already in the midst of the season now, so got to keep rolling through these trends as fast as possible so we can get that updated information and make our bets, because we're starting to play some things earlier in the week, and I mean, it's working for us. We're getting some good CLV, so it also helps us prepare for the podcast and, you know, just keep on winning, because at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. But who doesn't like to talk about fun trends too? I've got some exciting ones to talk about. So before we actually get into it, as always, I am DJ. I am the host of Sharpen the Public here. Andy and I talk every week as well. Those episodes come out on Friday. Those are the previews for the weeks. This is the recap episode. If you're new here, thank you for checking us out. We are the only sports betting outlet that solely focuses on providing public betting trends and talking about this stuff, because I always wanted to know what the context was behind, hey, the public's 65% on this team or the money's 64% on this team. What do those numbers mean? And last year we started providing those numbers because we track them here at Happy Hour Sports, and it's exciting to talk about. I mean, it helps us win some money here too. So there's a lot of good reasons to follow this stuff. It wins us some good money here, but as always, a disclaimer, we're not handicappers. I'm not here to give out picks and have you pay us for this information. I'm trying to win money with you guys. This is an exciting process that we can kind of build together and build Happy Hour Sports through Sharpen the Public and all the stuff that we got going on. We've got a bunch of different writers providing content about all the sports that you could bet on. So we got NHL coming up, we got NBA coming up, we got MMA every week, and obviously I'm here with football, and then plenty of other stuff with tailgates and turnovers in their podcast, and we keep up picking up other sports betting podcasts like Kicks and Picks. So thank you guys so much for the support, but I'll stop rambling about us because I always do try to keep these recap episodes quicker than our normal preview episodes. So let's get into it. All right, the public went 9-5 with a pending win on the Seahawks -2.5. So that's going to put them at 10-5 this week, which is really incredible. I mean, I've talked about it over the past couple of weeks. I've expected a downturn, and I still do expect a downturn later in the year because I don't think they can really keep this up, and we'll talk about that when we get to the overall through Week 4 trends. So to see them go 9-5 is really impressive, and they went 3-1 over 75%, and the Seahawks, I think, ended near 70 or 75. So I mean, that's putting them really good in these high confidence public ranges, which is surprising to see. I mean, they also went good on the over. So public, you know, when there's 50% or more of the bets on the over, they went 4-2 this week. Public also did good on the under. It's 6-2. So like a really good week for the public, despite, you know, Mahomes sliding on the 2-yard line and ruining a lot of people's parlays and teasers. So, I mean, you guys didn't really think that they would let Chiefs lose in front of Taylor Swift or all the Swifties, right? They just had to need that one out and not let anyone score. But thankfully, here at Happy Hour Sports, we took the Jets in a teaser. So a win is a win. Okay, anyway, the public had a great week, and we'll talk about that a lot more when we get to the next portion, which is the overall trends through week 4, but the money went 11-3 that we expected. I didn't expect it to be that good. 6-0 ATS above 75% money. Really crazy to see, really awesome to see. It's a good thing for the money to turn around because it really didn't start the year good. But as we talked about it, because we talk about it every week, this was about to be expected as we saw the money not do so well in the first 2 weeks. They picked it up last week, and now good to see them go to 11-3 again. We saw last year a lot of the times when they had bad records that would come back and bounce back pretty quickly. So I don't expect this, 11-3 to stay hot, like that hot, but they'll probably stay right around above 500, right in that 55-60% range for the next couple of weeks. Sharp differential went 10-4 ATS. We got some crazy long-term trends for that one, but exciting to see that come back around because the last couple of weeks, the sharp differential has not done well either. I say it's a crazy week because literally all these trends are positive, which I don't think I've seen in the years that I've been tracking these numbers. Money percentage on the over 4-2, sharp differential on the over 3-2. Money percentage on the under went 6-3, and then sharp differential on the under went 6-4. So really crazy, everything positive. I did not expect to see that on my 2023 bingo card. What I also did not expect to see on my 2023 bingo card was through 4 weeks, I did not expect to see the public at 33-27 ATS to date. I mean, that's insane. And obviously I'm saying insane in a very loose sense of the word because 6 games above 500 is not the end of it's not crazy. But for the general betting public, it is insane because there is this whole narrative about fade the public. You need to fade the public. The 75% of the bets are on this side. Just go the other way. You're going to win. Or vice versa, like tail the money. It's not that simple. The reason we started Sharpen the Public was to put context to those numbers and be like, hey, this is what's happening in the public. No one's really talking about it. People just expect everyone to understand, hey, the public's bad, money's good, let it be that. Yes, those are the general senses of the word, but if you faded the public last year, you would have been 5 or 10 games over 500, which betting by the juice, you're very, very negative. So there is reason to take these numbers and look at them in depth. And hey, we can look at these numbers and say above 75% public confidence, or when the bets are 75% or greater. This year, the public's 5-4. They're positive when the public is that greater. And I think depending on whatever the Seahawks were today, that might be 6-4 after today. So there's so much context to be had there. The only crazy number I see in this is between 55 and 59% of the bets. The public's 10-6 ATS. And then anything where they're kind of like wishy-washy on, like between 50 and 54%. So like it's on either side. It could be close to either side. Their public is 4-7 ATS. Otherwise, I mean, 33-27 ATS as a whole, pretty impressive. Now, moving forward, I think the public is going to they're going to have some sort of bloody Sunday at some point here. I don't expect them to keep up betting 9-5 and 10-6 days. So those days might be numbered, but it's nearly impossible to predict when that will happen. But I don't claim to be a fortune teller. I just sit here and tell you all the trends that I find interesting because we're the only people that track them. Next stop is we'll talk about the totals. So public on the totals, public on the over 17-16 to date, and public on the under 18-10 to date. So that 18-10 number is exciting because that's what we saw last year and the years before that. We talked about it. Public is good at betting the under. The crazy thing about it right now through week 4 in 2023 is that the public, when they're not confident on the under, but still on the under, so between 50 and 55% of the bets, you're seeing a 12-3 record to the under, which is just mind-blowing that when it's so wishy-washy, like the public is doing well. And another thing that's crazy about the totals is that the public is 17-16 just generally on totals on overs. That is not something that I expected, especially seeing them go nearly 30 or 40 games under 500 last year, betting on the over. So interesting things to start the year. I think that'll turn around as well. But that 13-3 week to the over really helped those numbers. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how it plays out throughout the year. But still interesting nonetheless. Okay, moving to the money. Through week 4, the money percentage is 34-26 ATS. So good to see that they're finally hitting better than the public by 1 game. The interesting things, I mean, 12-6 ATS above 75% money. You're seeing 9-4 ATS between 50 and 54% money. So like when it's really confident or really not confident, it's doing well, but everything else is not doing well. This thing this trend is so mind-boggling to me because we've seen it through the last couple of years, but between the 60 and 64% money range, it's always been bad. It started out like 0-6, and now it's 3-9 ATS. So starting out 0-6 obviously doesn't help, but being 3-9 through 4 weeks and still being bad while we have seen it be bad in the recent years, it's a really tough number to fall into. But I mean, if you're seeing a team that you don't like and they have 63% of the money or 64% of the money, I mean, fade the fuck out of them. I don't know what it is about this number, but it's crazy to me that such a small range can be so bad. I'll put it in perspective. So like last year, that particular range, 60 to 64% money went 16-31 ATS. Like, why is that doing so poorly now as well? I don't know. I don't get it. I wish I could explain why these things are happening, but I'm not like I said, I'm not a fortune teller. I think it's a little bit because of like where Vegas decides to move lines and stuff, but I think there's a lot more at play than just that. Okay, anyway, moving on. Sharp differential also improving to 32 and 28 ATS throughout the year. So we're seeing both public money and sharp differential all be positive, which is really interesting to see. If you don't know what sharp differential is, it's the difference between money and public percentage, and it's always the positive. So like the sharp differential is on the team where there is a positive sharp differential. So if there's 65% of the money on one team and 62% of the bets on that same team, they have a 3% sharp differential. Therefore, the sharp differential is on that team. The other team would have a negative sharp differential, so the sharp differential is not on them. Make sense? Cool. We talked about the sharp differential a lot last year, but the crazy thing is the golden rule and the Geico trend are both not hitting well. 30% plus sharp differential is hitting really well at 3-1 ATS. But the really crazy thing, the thing that I alluded to when we ran through these things, between 10 and 14% sharp differential, you are seeing a 14-0 trend ATS. That's insane. I don't really understand how that happens. But if you see a team and you like that team between 10 and 14% sharp differential at 1 p.m. or whatever the kickoff is, smash it. Smash it. I don't know what else to say. 14-0 is absolutely insane, and it's part of the reason that the sharp differential is 32 and 28. Without that, they're 18 and 28. So I don't know what's going on. It's a weird start to the year. Let's run through the rest of these so we can get into the games, though. So money percentage on the under 25 and 16, sharp differential on the under 29 and 19, money percentage on the over 13 and 9, sharp differential on the over 10 and 5. Best things I see from that are sharp differential on the over being 10 and 5 is awesome. So we didn't really have many sharp differential trends, over trends last year, but we're starting to see things develop here in the money and the sharps, which is cool. So anything sharp differential on the over, good to see. Money percentage on the over 75 plus 6 and 2 is also really good to see. So I'll talk about these a lot, like more throughout the year and in my articles, but I can only talk about them so much on the podcast or else people are going to not understand the numbers that they need to know, because I do tend to ramble about the numbers because I do love them so much and I find it really fascinating to look at. Okay. Yes, those were the general betting trends. And as always, I do have all of the information about like who the public is good at betting, like if they're bad at betting the Bears or bad betting the Panthers and all that stuff. But I don't want to get into all that right now when we have to talk about every game that happened in week 4. So this week was an interesting one for me. Sadly, ended up down half a unit because of a stupid 2-unit play on the under in the Commanders game, but that is what it is. I ended up going 12 for 4 or 12 for 16 on all of the spreads this week, which is pretty exciting, hitting at about 60% of clip just guessing spreads. However, that includes leans. I'm not saying that I won all those bets, just showing the context of all the numbers and what these things can do. I'm not trying to be a capper. I'm not trying to, again, get everyone to buy my information, buy my picks. That's not what I want. I want everyone to build a community about talking about data, talking about sports, and talking about the things we find interesting, like these trends and stuff. So exciting to see myself go 12 and 6, 12 and 4 this week. Happy about that. Hopefully we can keep that rolling into week 5, but annoyed about the Giants. I mean, at the end of the day, they suck, and I know they suck, but we will get to them at some point. Okay, I've talked for too long. Let's start talking about all of the public betting trends for each of the games this week, starting with the Lions-Packers that happened on Thursday night. Lions went into Lambeau Field as 1.5-point favorites with 49% of the bets and 43% of the money. So a sharp edge towards the Packers here. I lean Lions in this one, and mainly because they just simply have the better offense. I think there was a lot of questions with the Packers offense, with Christian Watson coming off of injury and Aaron Jones coming back from injury, and Jordan Love. I just don't think they had played enough to see like where they were in the NFL. Like the Lions had beaten the Chiefs, the Lions had been toe-to-toe with the Seahawks. They've had a good season so far, and their defensive line looks really good with Aiden Hutchinson at the helm. So I think in this NFC North divisional matchup, it was tough to back them. So I didn't take the Lions because, for one, the sharps were on the Packers, and then for two, I was nervous about the Lambeau effect, genuinely, which in the end, the Lions won 34-20 and just asserted their dominance in the NFC North. It looks like they're going to win this division, so shout out to them. I ended up taking the under in a divisional game. I mean, there was a lot of crazy things that happened that kind of hit this over, some early turnovers and the ball not quite bouncing our way, but I mean, it is what it is. The under was not the play. The Lions were the play, and they ended up getting the W. So exciting to see that out of the Lions. They look really good. I mean, their offense looks formidable, scoring 30 points nearly every game. So I'm going to continue to look to back these Detroit Lions because they look like, I mean, top 5 probably in the NFC right now behind, the Niners, Cowboys, and Eagles. Those next few playoff spots are up for grabs, and it looks like the Lions might be one of those 4 division winners. Okay, moving on to the Toy Story 9:30 a.m. game. Jaguars playing at home in Wembley Stadium against the Falcons, obviously overseas in London. This game was aired on Toy Story whatever kids show, which actually looked pretty good. I mean, the booger session was really interesting to watch, but it was fun to see them do that, and I think it's really cool that the NFL is getting the kids involved or whatever, and they're doing it in a good way. Like, everything looked pretty seamless, and they had that slinky that went viral on TikTok with the moving backwards for penalties and stuff. So cool to see. Anyway, football-wise, this was a must-win for the Jags. They were not playing well. They were not playing up to what their capabilities are, and they got kind of lucky here playing the Falcons that just are so in desperate need of a quarterback. Desmond Ridder looks awful. They need to trade for Kirk Cousins or do something because they have the weapons on this offense, but Desmond Ridder is just holding them back. I leaned Jags, and I took the under. I felt with the travel, sharp differentials, and everything, this was an underplay with 30% of the sharp differentials toward the under, 63% of the bets on the over, 67% of money on the under. It's a good sign, as we know. Obviously, that hit, so that's awesome, but I lean Jags mainly because I don't trust Desmond Ridder, especially traveling overseas. There was nothing here from me that said, hey, the Falcons are going to come out and outscore this Jaguars offense that desperately needed this win to go 2-2 because right now they're behind the Colts and the Texans look really good in this AFC South. It's going to be a much closer division than everyone thought. So glad that they can come out and get that win. I don't know why they're not involving Calvin Ridley enough. One reception in the first half, which was for a touchdown, but at the end of the day, Jags get it done in London. They get to stay in London against and face the Bills next week. So that'll be interesting to kind of see where people lean with the Jaguars actually staying in London versus the Bills traveling. My initial thought is, hey, it's the Bills, but we'll see. Moving on to everyone's favorite game of the slate, which was actually pretty exciting. I mean, the over hit, and I had the over, 51% of the bets and 69% of the money towards the over. We know the sharp differential was good in the over. One of the reasons I liked it. Broncos at Bears. Broncos -3 coming into Soldier Field to face the 0-4 Bears. This spread was a toss-up for me. Like, the Broncos just allowed 70. I would have been on their side. I would have leaned Broncos, but I genuinely didn't know what to do. Like, their offense is good, but their defense is absolutely garbage. But now we're playing the Bears, who just look like they don't even want to be playing football. I mean, it looks like they're trying to actively tank for Caleb Williams and these first 2 overall picks. And Justin Fields, like, he's running around for his dear life. I don't know how to even talk about this Bears team. There was a 19% sharp differential on the Bears, and it looked like they were going to manage to cover, but they kind of threw the game away in the second half. I ended up only being on the over because these 2 defenses they're just bad. A lot of public betting trends pointed toward the over. As I said at the beginning, 69% of the money is a great sign, as well as the 18% sharp differential. The line moved up. A lot of reasons to back the over here. It kind of looked like it wasn't going to hit in the beginning of the game, but we eventually got there with terrible defensive play and a bottling by the Bears. So I don't know what's going to happen. They might go 0-17. So whoever has that bet, I mean, that's awesome. Tweet it at me. That's really cool to see. But I have a Super Bowl ticket on this Bears team, and it is what it is. I mean, you take the hits as they come, and the Bears will be having Caleb Williams by the end of this year. Okay, moving on. Ravens at Browns. Ravens plus 3.5 dogs going into this AFC North divisional matchup. 59% of the bets and 67% of the money. I love the Ravens here, but ended up only taking the under because I feel like it's a must bet to bet the AFC North unders. These teams are always so defensively good and gritty when they play each other. And obviously we're playing the Browns. The Browns had the best defense in football before this game. One of the reasons to back the Ravens here was the strong Harbaugh-Lamar connection, as coming off losses as dogs as well in the AFC North. There was a lot of trends pointing towards them really doing well in this spot. And in the AFC North, you really just want to take the dog no matter who's home or whatever. These teams are always go 1-1 ATS, like it feels like. 1-1 straight up. We saw in this one 94% of the money towards the under, 67% of the bets on the under. Again, I talked about it in the beginning. Good to see public and money on the under. You always want to tail that. So honestly, an easy one. Like, I didn't expect the Browns to come out and score 3 points, but I did expect the Ravens to give the Browns the best offensive show they saw, and the Ravens to also give them a very good defensive show as well. So you knew this one was going to be on the ground. I mean, Lamar only threw the ball 19 times. So they got it done in the end. The Ravens knew what they were doing going into wherever the Browns play in Cleveland. So exciting to get another win on that one. But moving on, we see the Bengals as -2.5 favorites going into Tennessee. 63% of the bets ended up on the Bengals with 49% of the money. I love the Titans here with the sharp differential and Mike Vrabel as a dog at home. We talked about it a lot last week in kind of the reverse order because there was so much talk about Vrabel as a dog because he had just covered as a dog, and now he was coming in as a dog again and then didn't cover. And now this game, he is a dog again at home against a very beat-up Bengals team that just did not look ready to play. I don't know what's going on with the Bengals offense. I mean, T. Higgins got hurt too. This is a mess for the Bengals, and anyone that's got a Ravens ticket or a Steelers ticket to win the AFC North, I mean, kudos to you. It doesn't look like the Bengals are even going to make the playoffs right now. But in the end of the day, like, the Titans were absolutely the right spot here with the sharp differential, with Vrabel at home. They just created the perfect defensive plan to overload this Bengals offensive line that is beaten up. Joe Burrow's beaten up. They could not get the ball out quick enough, and it did not work out. I mean, on the offensive side of the ball, they gave Derrick Henry the ball a lot more than Tajay Spears, and he got the job done too. So this aging Bengals defense that we knew from the beginning, we talked about it in our previews, had given so many people away, like Jesse Bates and Von Bell. It's looking like it's got some holes now. And the Bengals defense was one of the great things about them when they were on their Super Bowl run and making these plays in the playoffs. But without him and with Burrow hurt, this Bengal team looks bad and in bad shape. So I'll be curious to see how the public reacts to stuff like this, if they're going to just be all out on the Bengals, if they're going to come back and be like, okay, Joe Burrow's sitting out, what's going to happen, and think about it more in depth. But we'll see. There's a lot of games left, and it's only week 5. They could easily turn their season around, and no one would bat an eye. So hopefully Joe Burrow can get healthy and stay healthy, but I'm not so sure it'll be that simple. Anyway, moving on to the best game of the slate, we saw Dolphins-Bills. Dolphins obviously were +3 dogs going into Buffalo with 57% of the bets on the Bills and 80% of the money. This was an absolute smash play on the Bills. Like, Bills -2.5 was either this or nothing. I honestly like the under too, just because I wanted to be a bit contrarian with 82% of the public on the over, but clearly that was not the play. I mean, we all know that these two teams are built to play offense. I just thought the Bills defense would do a little bit more than, the Dolphins defense would do a little bit more than allowing 40 to the Bills. But I digress. Josh Allen looks like the king of the AFC again. He's taken the reins back over. He's leading the AFC East. The Bills know what they're doing. They come out and just are managed to shut down the middle of the field and get to Tua. Like, that's what the Bills defense did. That's what no defense that they had played was able to do. I think the Dolphins were a bit overvalued here, seeing that we saw this matchup in Buffalo last year be nearly, I think it was -7, and now we're getting the Bills at I got it at 2.5. And Josh Allen absolutely asserted his dominance here. So good read here. I think the Sharps were absolutely right. It's just a really tough spot to back a dog on the road in the AFC East coming off a 70-point win. Like, it was just clearly a play that was too good to be true to back the Dolphins here. Exciting game to watch, and I'm excited for the rest of the AFC East because these two teams are really going to have their own battles to win this division. But right now, it looks like the Bills are on top. Moving on to my Eagles. Commanders came in at 9.5-point dogs, or 8.5, whatever you got it at, into Lincoln Financial Field to play their division rivals, the Philadelphia Eagles, who had 77% of the bets, while the Commanders had 56% of the money. I was very, very hesitant to take the Eagles in any capacity here. Andy took them in a teaser, which I think was fine. I think we're very blessed that we got this win. But the Commanders always play us hard. Ron Rivera kind of knows how to play this Eagles offense, and the issue was the Eagles defense was not getting any stops early in the game, allowing 14 points to the Commanders in the first quarter or early in the second quarter was a major, major issue. And I didn't expect the Eagles to come out and score many points because I thought Ron Rivera was going to be able to handle it, especially with, Chase Young, and I thought their defensive line was pretty capable of putting pressure on the Eagles offensive line. But on the other side, I thought that the same thing, but the defensive line really didn't get going until the second half. It looked like Sam Howell was the second coming of Tom Brady at some point. We ended up being on the under for 2 units because of the 66% of the bets on the over, 69% of the money towards the under. Obviously a large sharp differential, but the main thing was, like I was talking about, the Eagles, there was no reason the Eagles should have been tied in the first half, even late in the game, allowing 30 points to the Commanders. They should have won this game 24-7 if they had played to their full capability, but they really shit the bed. And I guess part of that is the short week, but I didn't put too much into that. Anyway, wrong bet. I'm glad I didn't bet the Eagles. It didn't feel right, and obviously the Sharps were right here. The Commanders could have easily come out of this game with a win, but as an Eagles fan, I'm glad they did not, and the Eagles are 4-0. So, best team in the NFC? No. That term is reserved for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are 3-1. 3-1. I mean, I talked about it in my NFC South divisional preview. I loved the Bucs this year. I don't know why everyone was so down on them. 6.5 wins for a win total, pretty egregious if you ask me. But the Bucs came in as 4.5-point dogs to New Orleans. 73% of the bets, 82% of the money on the Bucs, and they just looked great. They really came out strong in this divisional matchup. It was a bit curious to me that the Saints were starting Derek Carr, and clearly he didn't look 100%. A lot of his passes just ended up being in front of the line to gain, and it basically bit the Saints in the butt. The Bucs defense is good, and I don't know why, like I said at the beginning, I don't understand why there was so much negativity towards this Bucs team when they have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and a strong defense that is capable of winning games. But people were just really down on Baker. But with these good offensive weapons, it looks like this team is actually humming pretty well. And I mean, they're leading the NFC North, so obviously they're doing something well. Even if the Bucs can't beat the teams like the Eagles, I mean, they're going to play these NFC South division games well. They're going to play the mid-tiers teams pretty well, and they might even end up winning this division. So shout out to anyone who has that ticket in hand. I don't know what's happening to the Saints. I think Derek Carr needs to get healthy again, obviously, and then they need to get back to normal on defense, because allowing 26 to Baker is not going to win them games. No, definitely not win them the NFC South. But in another one, the Sharps were again right. 11, like I said, 9% Sharps towards the Bucs here. Massive sharp differential towards the under as well. I just was a bit uncurious with the Derek Carr situation, what was going to happen, so I elected to stay away. But in the end, I probably should take the under, especially given all the way the numbers ended up as I look at them right now. Next one, again, NFC South. We've got Vikings heading to Carolina as 3.5 or 4.5 point favorites. 65% of the bets and 77% of the money on the Vikings, which is honestly no surprise. Everyone kind of expected the Vikings to come out here and win. It would have been a massive, massive issue for Minnesota if they started 0-4. So starting 1-3 obviously isn't great, but they needed to. This was an absolute must-win game. I'm surprised 99% of the public did not bet on the Vikings here. I would have been very surprised if they didn't come out and win this game. With Bryce Young at quarterback, the Panthers look garbage. I don't know what's going on with that offense. Frank Reich doesn't look integrated perfectly, like he's perfectly integrated into this like franchise. There's a lot of issues for the Panthers, and them allowing 21 and scoring 13 at home. Not great. Not going to be great. I mean, 200 yards on offense is not going to cut it in the NFL, and Bryce Young needs to figure something out. There was a massive sharp differential here again towards the under, and I elected to stay away because it just felt weird, with the Vikings are absolutely going to win type of vibe. I didn't want to bet it, and that's okay. Sometimes you got to stay away. In the end, yet another under that would have cashed, and in a game that I did like the under, and I ended up not taking anything because I also didn't know which way to lean with the Rams and the Colts. LA came into Indianapolis. I think they stayed in the Midwest, but LA came in -1 favorites with 80% of the bets, 75% of the money. This game went to overtime, surprisingly. So, I mean, the spread was pretty much right on, being like almost a pick 'em. 58% of the bets to the over, 62% of the bets of the money to the over. This was a game that no one really knew which side to go. It could have gone either way. Obviously, the public was pretty heavy on the Rams, and they ended up getting it done. I think at the end of the day, you just kind of back the better quarterback in this one. But I liked AR. I liked the way the Colts are headed. I think they're playing really good football. They had a chance to win that game, and they didn't. And that's probably just the tiers of the quarterbacks. I mean, you got Matt Stafford, Super Bowl winner, veteran, versus Anthony Richardson, who is very young and has a lot of potential. So, lots to look forward to for Colts fans in this one. The Rams and Puka Nacua look awesome. They're about to get Cooper Kupp back. So, it'll be interesting to see how they fare the rest of the season, because I'm not quite sure I know where I put them. Maybe like 8 or 9 in the NFC power rankings, maybe even higher, maybe 7 or 6, like right on that cusp of the playoffs. But as of right now, I'm not sure how I feel about the Rams. They beat the Seahawks to begin the year. They're playing well, but they've already lost to the Niners. I know they come back and beat the Niners again. Who's to say? It'll be an interesting year, and I'm excited to see how people expect to bet this team. Another one, Steelers-Texans. Steelers -3 heading into Houston. 51% of the bets on the Steelers, yet 57% of the money on the Texans. I think the Texans were absolutely the sharp side here. I love the Texans in this matchup, but I was hesitant to bet it. I didn't take anyone, but I leaned Texans because CJ Stroud and this offense just simply look undervalued. I think there's a lot to be said about how bad the Texans are. They're just not going to win these close games, but I mean, they're 2-2 in the AFC South, so like they have a shot at winning this division. TJ Stroud, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, this offense is firing on all cylinders thanks to how accurate and how good of a quarterback CJ Stroud is and is going to be in this NFL. The issue for the Steelers is their offense. Kenny Pickett got hurt. Mitch Trubisky coming in doesn't really do much. Matt Canada is the worst offensive coordinator in the NFL. I don't know what Mike Tomlin sees in Matt Canada, but their play calling and whatever they're doing on offense just does not work, and it has not worked for a few years. Their defense has been so good. They weren't that great in this game, honestly. I mean, 30 points to CJ Stroud, a rookie, is not something that your hopeful defensive MVP TJ Watt should be allowing. So, I mean, a lot of people like the under for that reason, but the Texans were actually the one that got it done to stop Matt Canada's terrible offense. So, like, the Steelers might be the new Broncos with just such a good defense, but a terrible offense of last year. And I don't know. I like backing the Steelers, but this was absolutely the spot to back the home dog, back the Texans with the great offense and the exciting, more electrifying team right now, because Mike Tomlin's got to do something about Matt Canada. He's got to go. Speaking of people that have to go, we can move to Josh McDaniels and fucking Brandon Staley. These guys, I don't know how they have jobs either. I backed the Raiders here. I had them +6.5, but you could get them in 7 in some shops, which would have covered or pushed. I'm sorry. 25% of the bets on the Raiders, 51% of the money on the Raiders here. This was not necessarily a bad beat, but a game that the Raiders easily could have covered. They could have won this game 30-15, 30-17, something like that, yet they just did not execute well. Obviously, the last play of the game, not necessarily, but pretty much the last play of the game, they threw a pick on the goal line. Aiden O'Connell is a young quarterback. You got to cut him some slack, but his offensive line did not do him any favors in this game. Khalil Mack had a career day with, I think, 6 sacks, which is just insane. The Chargers defense is not that good. Josh McDaniels did not have the right game plan. His play calling was not great. I don't know what they're doing, and Brandon Staley is lucky. Like, the Raiders outrated themselves, but nearly got raided by the Chargers. Like, this was an ugly-ass game, and not one I regret betting on. I think the Raiders were the right side here. They just didn't execute properly. But, like, it's just annoying when you back Josh Daniels 2 back-to-back weeks, and he just does not make it look like he should be covering in any games while they actually should be. But it is what it is. Yet another divisional matchup is next. Cardinals plus 14 in Santa Clara against the Niners. 64% of the bets on the Niners and 75% of the money. This was a weird one. I mean, a massive spread against a Cardinals team who looks really good for respectively where people thought they were going to be. I mean, they beat the Cowboys in the week prior. They played really well in this game. Josh Dobbs actually looks like an actual quarterback, and it's like, hey, when Kyler comes back, like, one of these teams, like the Jets that need a quarterback, could pick someone like this up. But at the end, they couldn't get it done to cover the spread. They dropped 2 touchdowns in the end zone to end that game, which would have ruined a lot of parlays, money line, and whatever, teasers and what have you. But I elected to lean off this one. I leaned the over, 69% of the bets, 85% of the money on the over, and we know that the sharp differential toward the over is always good, so that's awesome to see that continues to cash with that. I just was not prepared to back a team plus or minus 14. I mean, I didn't quite see the value in either side. I think there was value in the over, and I overlooked that, but we move. Pats Cowboys, first part of our teaser, we had Cowboys minus 6.5 down to minus 0.5. I mean, they just went out and took care of business. Like, this was a great value spot for the Cowboys. I think they were a bit undervalued based on just losing the Cardinals, and the Patriots were probably slightly overvalued, having just beaten the Jets. This was a really tough spot for the Patriots to come in and do anything against a Cowboys defense that has seen a lot of injuries, but is still a very good set of players. And then, Dak and the offense finally hit their stride a bit against a tough defense, and I think that's what a lot of people saw betting with the sharp differential towards the Patriots. I mean, there was 67% of the bets on the Cowboys and 50% of the money, yet the Cowboys went out and destroyed the Patriots. So this is a point of, like, talking about these games in depth and not just following the numbers straight up. I mean, you can, and eventually things are going to work out probably with obviously what we saw last year, but I mean, the sharp differential didn't hit here. So, and we were on the other side too. We were on the Cowboys side. So that's a nice win to see. The under barely hit for anyone that bet it. I mean, 55% of the bets on the under and 80% of the money, yet there was a few opportunities where the over could have hit here, yet someone missed a field goal, but that will happen as well. Rolling through, Chiefs-Jets on Sunday night, a much better game than anyone probably expected. Chiefs obviously coming in 7.5 minus 8.5 favorites, 73% of the bets, 62% of the money. So that sharp edge towards the Jets. This is the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce game. If you had a parlay with anything Travis Kelce wise, I'm sure it did not hit. Like the anytime touchdown or whatever parlays, that's how they get you. There was so much hype around it. I had to back the Jets here just basically by the number, but I didn't take them. I only leaned them. I actually had the Chiefs as the second part of the teaser, minus 2.5, that thankfully barely cashed. At the end of the day, like, this was a good spot to back a home dog in a good defense versus a very overhyped team. This is probably, the 7.5 was probably the right number, around like 6.5, 7.5 maybe, but Mahomes easily could have had the game won and had a lot of people cover their bets, but I think he did the right thing. I think taking the knee there or sliding and just solidifying the win is the way to play football. Like, there was that whole Todd Gurley situation a few years ago where they did end up scoring the touchdown when they only needed the field goal with like a minute and a half left, and they gave, I think it was Matt Stafford, enough time to win the game with no timeout. So, like, this stuff happens. Like, I don't think that there's any rigging or whatever bullshit that people will tell you. This was the right side, I think, as well. The Jets were. But in the end, we got out of it with the teaser. Chiefs looked fine. I thought Zach Wilson looked really good in the second half, and I was honestly kind of cheering for him, despite having Chiefs -2.5 to win us another unit. But we'll see how the Jets respond. Like, it looks like Zach Wilson is finally solidifying himself into this West Coast offense, as we heard Chris Collinsworth talk about it for hours on Sunday night, but I'll digress there. In the end, kind of read it properly, but good spot to back the Jets. Tough for a bunch of public bettors losing on the Chiefs there, but those are the breaks, guys. Those are the breaks. And that's why we talk about all these things on Sharpen the Public, because I can go out and fade the public, which is not always advised, and lose on the Giants because the Giants are fucking terrible at football. 63% of the bets on the Seahawks, 59% of the money on the Giants, +2.5. I thought this was another good spot to back a home dog in a week where a lot of the home dogs were playing well. And Daniel Jones is obviously terrible in prime time. I thought maybe that didn't matter, but clearly it does. Zabel didn't really make the best play calls. Carroll didn't either. I thought there was a lot of opportunities here for the Giants. Their offensive line was getting demolished, and the battle's won in the trenches. The Seahawks are the better team. They're the better offense, and at the end of the day, they're just simply better than the Giants. The Giants are not what they were last year, at a team that covered nearly 13 times against the spread. It'll be really interesting, in my opinion, to see how people react to this one. If they're just completely out on the Giants, if people still see value in them. They've got a really tough schedule ahead. One of the reasons I like them, again, +2.5, was this was a game they needed to win if they wanted to stay in the playoff hunt. I think they're about to play the Bills and the Dolphins, or some really tough teams, and it's going to be a tough ride for them. And if they can't win against the Seahawks at home, so sorry to all you Giants fans and anyone that bet on the Giants with me. Sadly, the Giants ended up making us go down half a unit, but we go 6-5, and I'm not terribly upset. Just need to get back on track for hitting the 2-unit plays. You guys know me. I don't go crazy with units, usually 1 or 2. I haven't placed a 3, I think, yet. But we're doing well on teasers, 2-0 in teasers so far. Kansas City, Dallas this week. Hopefully can continue to hit well on those, and probably take some on the podcast on Friday. But as always, thank you guys so much for listening. If you have any feedback or anything at all, please let me know at DJJ Sports on Twitter. I'm happy to talk about all criticism, anything, talk about sports in general. Just give me a DM and we can talk about games and stuff. If you have any questions, please let me know. Try to make this as busy as I can and just keep everyone updated on public betting trends. I think it's really exciting to talk about, especially when we see stuff like 14-0 ATS trends come out, or 12-3 on the under when the public is not confident on it. So, like, a lot of gems we can find and a lot of winners. And I'm not going to always pick the winners, but I'm always here to talk about everything and be transparent and help you guys win too. So, like, let's keep this thing rolling. I'm very thankful for the support that we have to this point, but let's keep it going. Thank you guys, as always. The boys bet better with beer, and we'll see you next time.